Fresh and
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all my buds. And today we have an excellent episode with my dear friend Dagan White, who, I'll be honest, I should have on the show more. He is just a sweet, sweet man and is a wealth of knowledge in the game of Flesh and Blood and trading card games in general. And we are going to have a lot of fun, and we're also going to get a little bit spooky because Halloween is coming up here in the States and around the world if you celebrate, and we like to get a little spooky, you know? I love spooky season, so that's what we're going to do. But before we get to all that, I do want to shout out the patrons who help keep this show on all the time. For 115 episodes, we keep it going. It is an excellent way to support the show. It keeps the mics hot, the lights on. You can find all of this in the show notes, as well as links for the Buds Discord, which is a great place to hang out in this community. And you get links for the YouTube, Twitter, and all that fun stuff. So we're going to have a great time this episode. I just know it. Dagan's the best. And we're going to have a lot of deep conversations and maybe some sillier ones. And that's okay because this is Fresh and Buds. I'm Tommy Fresh, and I do what I want with my own show, and I hope you all enjoy it. Now, if we're lucky, we might be visited by the ghost of Charmer, aka Derek Oswald, at the end of the show. We don't know. He's been kind of fading in and out, some sort of apparition here, but we will see at the end of the show. But until then, here's Dagan. All right, buds. We are here with Dagan White, the zookeeper, our dear, dear friend. Haven't had a chat with him in a minute, and I'm happy that he's here. We were just catching up a little bit before I hit record, and I'm just happy to have you on, Dagan. I mean, this has been it's been a while. It's been a while, but you know, you're one of my favorite people in the community. You're one of my favorite people in the pro scene. You know, you just kind of, you get in there and you're just kind of a silent killer in a way, but you know, you're having a good time, and that's what I love about you. And I thought, you know what, you know, we're getting a little spooky for this week because Halloween's in less than a week from now, and I figured, you know, I've seen you dress up a few times in your day.
A couple times. Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what, obviously he gets it. So Dagan, first of all, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's good to be back. I haven't talked to you in such a long time. We are just talking before this how it hasn't been since like maybe even Baltimore since we talked in person even.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. You know, you pop up in the Buds Discord, you know, from time to time, especially whenever some MetaZoo gets mentioned. You know, it's like
Yep.
your spidey senses go off and you hop in. But no, yeah, it's been a while. You know, I haven't personally gotten to a lot of live events in a while. Hopefully, a little bit more in 2024. But we're all busy people. But we did play some ProQuests this weekend. You know, personally, I went to top 4 at my local ProQuest in limited. Died in top 4, unfortunately, but you know, it was a good time. I felt I didn't feel confident going into it because it was limited and I'd only drafted a couple times. It's just like, oh man, am I ready to force Teklo? Am I going to force Teklo? And then I ended up just kind of reading the open Max Nitro seats, and it kind of paid off for me until the end. Obviously, I got fatigued out by a Teklo, but you won a ProQuest this weekend.
I did, yeah.
Can you tell us how that went? You know, because you traveled for it. You know, take us from the beginning.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, I'm in central Iowa. That's where I live right now. And I had to drive up to Minnesota for a doubleheader weekend so I could play 2 in the same weekend for efficiency. Luckily, I had a friend up there I could crash with. Shout out to Elijah for being a great dude. I had 1 CC and 1 draft. I played Bravo, the same list I've had on my guide for a while at this point. Nothing too special. I went undefeated into top 8 and then immediately died to drawing all reds to Icelander. So it is what it is. But the second one was draft, and I forced Teklo all 3 times and won. Turns out that's just what you do. So
Yeah, I mean, Teklo's good. I will say, I think our ProQuest was one Teklo, one Dash in the finals, but I left before that game even started, so I don't know who took it, but
that's fair.
It seems like to be Teklo's format, as opposed to any of the other constructed formats. It hasn't really quite made the splash yet. This could all change, obviously, and we'll talk about that in a hot second. But do you find with the limited side of things that any hero can win? Because I saw a lot of success across the board with a lot of different heroes, although Teklo was seemingly the most overwhelmingly successful hero.
I think so. I'm not convinced Dash is quite good enough unless you have some very specific cards, though. So I don't think it'd catch me dead drafting Dash, to be honest. But I think the other two are both very good. Teklo is definitely the best deck to begin with until people figure out how to fight fatigue. Because that's clearly just the best thing to be doing until it's solved for a solution anyway. That's kind of where I'm at. I just force Teklo. I'm a simple man, so I like blocking.
Yes, yes, you sure do. And I do have to ask, so from your perspective, what are you afraid of on the other side of the table when you're playing Teklo Vossen in draft? There are certain cards that definitely can push through some damage. What are you most afraid to see?
The name of the game is usually overpower. Let's say you get over Teklo, so you either have like some tall, like Bulbar, I think it was called, Max, get tall overpower, or overload script the item. Those are usually two of the best ways to get over. Or just the Teklo mirror match and you draw your evos faster than your opponent. That works too. So
I found the Ratchet Up card to be quite good as well.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It seemed great in Max, and according to some of the buds in the Discord, they also think it's great in Dash as well. But it just seems so smooth to kind of pop your hyperdriver on the turn where you're boosting and then finish the turn with a Ratchet Up. It just kind of really pushed some damage. It felt good in the middle of the game and the end of the game. But that's awesome that you qualified. Are you excited for LA? You're going for sure, right?
Yeah, I've never been there before, so I'm super excited. It sounds like a great time. So
yeah, well, I know a lot of buds will be there. Hopefully I can make it out. I have one more chance to qualify, but we will see. I have a CC one, which you know what's funny? Initially going into ProQuest season, I was like, well, I know my CC deck. I'm more confident there. And then I top 4 in the limited, and now I'm starting to question myself on the CC side of things based on what we've seen at Dallas and basically results around the world on ProQuest season. Now, what are your thoughts for this ProQuest season? Like, where are you on CC, for example, in terms of how you feel about the format? Is it healthy? Are we still fighting this Lexi menace for the next 3 weeks? Or is there a little bit more opening up, especially with the big showing from Dromai this weekend?
Yeah, I think for this current season, at least while Lexi's around, the format's fairly solved, other than the best Dromai build, probably, since she just got the new cards. But the best aggro deck, I mean, you just play Lexi. You have a way to block Lexi on the other side of the coin, or you play Dromai. I feel like those are just the things you should be doing. Unfortunately, I don't see much room for other decks at the moment.
Really. Now, as a Bravo player, what decks that perhaps might be dark horses in a meta like this that you would be afraid to run into? Like, you're obviously expecting Dromais, you're expecting Lexis, and you're probably expecting a certain amount of Icelanders and stuff like that. What are you afraid to see? What would you be afraid that someone solves and brings to the table?
I mean, as a Bravo player specifically, I never want to sit across from a Turtle Dash because they'll just wreck me. So maybe there's a forum of Hybrid Dash that's fine right now, but I don't know. It's kind of iffy.
Really? Well, what about Reinhardt? What if you didn't have a hand? Let's say you were intimidated. That would be tough to block, right? I would imagine.
That would be the case if we didn't just get 2 more armor on
Yeah.
Bravo. So we can have up to like 14 armor if we really wanted to. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and that card, what is it? The
Civic
boots,
Steps.
Civic Steps is
Yeah.
quite good and a lot of fun in round the table, I must say.
It is. Yeah.
But I would say a Rhinar player, a Brute player, would enjoy the Quicken token.
They definitely would.
Yeah. Out of all the classes, I feel like they struggle for the go again the most, but still, Rhinar isn't quite there, and Leviah certainly isn't until I play it in 2 weeks. And I win undefeated against everything. But now, limited. Bright Lights, new limited set, very different. Mechanologist only. This is the most unique set we've had so far. What are your thoughts as a competitive minded player? Is this something that you find skill testing? I know you've forced a lot of Teklo, but there's going to be times when you can't do that, right? Because a lot of people are onto the Teklo scent in a way, and you might have to go max or God forbid dash IO, right? So what are your thoughts here?
So there's a couple different opinions that kind of go against each other, but I have them both. The first one is I'm really happy that I can feel confident forcing something and then just go with it, and it'd be fine without having to think about the draft picks too much. But the other side of the coin is that's not the greatest draft experience to begin with either for the average draft enjoyer.
Certainly, and maybe that's the problem with a hero like Teklovasa being in this format. Maybe if they didn't give us a more defensive hero in this format, because all you care about is things that block 3 for the most part, right? And and obviously you want some power cards in there as well to be able to close out the game and get your evos, yada yada yada. But when you only care about blocking for 90% of the game, the drafting experience becomes very narrow. Where I do feel like Dash and Max have a little bit more nuance to what you need to pick and what you need to read. Is there any validity to kind of saying that Bright Lights is a good limited format for the people who aren't blocking all the time?
I think it is. You can still pull off some pretty crazy combos with Max and even Dash. You can have some super tall, unblockable attacks that just kill people, or flashy boom grenade plays. You can still do some really fun stuff in the format. So I think for now, my opinion is it's still a fun draft set, and I'd be drafting it for a while, but that could change depending.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're gonna have to draft it at Worlds. You're going to Worlds, correct?
I am, yeah.
Oh boy. So maybe we'll see some Teklo action, or maybe we'll see you draft Dash at Worlds. That would be. I'm calling it now. You have to you read your seat. You draft Dash. You got 10 boom grenades and you go 3-0 in that draft. And we're calling it now here, folks. But now, Lexi, the boogeyman of the format right now, has finally hit the Living Legends points. I thought it already had, to be honest, like a week ago, but maybe I was wrong. Obviously, I was wrong because it was officially announced this week. So that means that Lexi will not be present at Worlds, minus Living Legends format if anybody decides to bring Lexi to that. What do you think the meta is going to look like for CC at Worlds without this dominant deck that we've been dealing with for quite some time?
I'm so excited she's dead. It gives other decks the room to breathe, to be able to set up literally anything without just getting run over immediately. I mean, you'll have decks like Fire Katsu, but you can kind of block them, and you can have a plan for them that makes sense. But Lexi just runs over anything that tries to set up, it feels like. So the meta for Worlds, I expect 4 kind of decks to be in a flux, I suppose. So we got Guardian, Bravo, which I can't imagine myself not playing, to nobody's surprise. There's Dromai, which is obviously very strong. I mean, it's proven itself even in the Lexi meta. So that'll be huge going forward with the new tome. It's nuts. Icelander, still very good. she now has more room to breathe without Lexi just destroying her immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So she'll have play into the Bravos and maybe the Dromice. We'll see. And then I think Ninjas will have the biggest resurgence in play as the premier aggro deck between Fi or Katsu even.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, even Katsu, right? You know, Fi has always had like this kind of really pop off kind of potential, right? And Katsu has too, but like playing against Bonds in Katsu does feel oppressive, right? And it's almost sometimes feels like, how is this not like at the top of the meta? Obviously things like Lexi and whatnot kind of hold it back, but it should be interesting. We see a resurgence of Ninja. All of a sudden, Dromai maybe comes back down a little bit, and it's going to be interesting. Now, Azuri is a hero that kind of is teetering on the edge, right? I always feel like, and it definitely got some support in Bright Lights from the expansion slot. Do you see Azuri kind of making a nice little resurgence as well?
I'll be honest, I don't have the most experience with Azuri because she has that kind of Guardian play style, but in my opinion, Guardian just kind of does that better.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine she has a very tough matchup into Dromai, and if you're having an issue into that deck, then I feel like you might want to reevaluate what you're playing. I could be wrong, but that's what it feels like to me on the surface. So,
yeah, well, we will see. I mean, there's certainly going to be people trying to make it work, and obviously there's a lot of factors at Worlds, right? I mean, you gotta do well draft as well to even get to the point where your CC deck matters. It's nice that we don't have to do a blitz this time. I feel like,
true.
But you know, some people might disagree. But as someone who doesn't play a lot of blitz, I'm happy, and we will see. Now, let's talk about fresh faves. When you first came, we did your regular fresh faves, your favorite of all times. This we're gonna do Bright Lights, and we're gonna have a special fresh faves after this. But we're gonna do your favorites from Bright Lights. So first, I think we know the answer to this based on our conversation already. Who is your favorite hero from Bright Lights?
Eklo. It's not close.
Now, so the question is here: is there a world where you're gonna ever try to make it work in CC?
I wish. I really wish he was good. I messed with him a little bit. I don't see it yet. He's too slow. And if you do transform into your demi hero, there's just too many cards that just kill you on the spot. It's ridiculous. I choose better. I hope he gets more support because the playstyle is very cool. And I like him a lot, but I just don't see it yet.
It really is. Yeah, I think, and I've talked about it on the show a couple of times the past couple of weeks, but I feel like Singularity is somewhat of a trap. If it's ever going to be a competitive deck, it might have to just kind of forgo that because
I agree.
It seems like a lot to like just lose. But it's still very cool and very flavorful, and I understand why people like it, right? Now, I mean, this you might have a different answer for this, but what's your favorite weapon from the set?
From Bright Lights?
Yeah.
I like Banksy as a weapon. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, you get to hit people with a big wrench and you get to put counters on stuff. Like I like the design of that one a lot. It's cool.
Yeah, that one is probably the coolest. I understand the pistol is pretty neat too. That you can kind of like bank up like some bullets and then fire them off when you get extra things. But the technical leveler feels so clunky to me. I don't know if you feel the same way.
It's also just a kind of a boring weapon. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
you don't bonk people with a hammer. It's just kind of like the shoot for two, kind of. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally serviceable, but. Yeah, Banksy's the real star of the show. I mean, it's such it's so good. But what's your favorite equipment? Now, there's a lot of options here. We got Evos, we got actual equipment. We have a lot of things going on.
I mean, to nobody's surprise, it's probably going to be the majestic blue block threes. They're blue, they block 3, and they can give you more armor. Like, what more do I need to say about them?
yeah. The Steel Soul is that that cycle.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I could care less about the text, to be honest.
The
rest is just so good to me. I don't even need it.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. And you don't even, especially in draft, you don't even feel bad picking it, right? Like even if you're not,
The blue black 3.
Yeah, blue black 3. Yeah, great. And then maybe I'll be able to throw it on my boots or something like that.
You go first. You now have a bunch of extra life. Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Now, what's your favorite run-of-the-mill card? A non-attack action, attack action? I don't think there's a couple instances in the set, but what's your favorite card you put in your deck?
It blocks well. I'm sure you can guess what it is. It's like one of the best blocking cards.
Is it Firewall?
Firewall.
It's Firewall.
It's just so good. It's red block 4. Like, it's so good. You can dig for your evos. Yeah. The other card though, the other block that gets +2 when you block with overpowers. That thing helped me win ProQuest by itself. So story time. There was this one turn where I blocked for 2 on a bank seat while there was an overload script in play. And I just completely brain farted. So I put the counter on it and I was like, oh no, what have I done? And then the next turn, I draw the defense card that blocks for 5 when it blocks an overpower attack, and it saved my life.
Wow.
It was amazing. I got rewarded for making the wrong play.
The Dagan White one brain cell worked in your favor yet again. It's almost not fair, Dagan, I will say.
All part of the plan.
What are your thoughts on the Galvanic block card? Which I forget what that one's called. That one can get...
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's serviceable. I don't find that the decks looking for that kind of card will be galvanizing that much, probably. But it's probably really good in Dash, I guess. So
yeah, probably. Yeah, and it feels weird in Max if you have to start popping your hyperdrivers, like only out of necessity. You play the card that you want to attack with, but need to Galvanic something, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think it's something you want to be doing. So
yeah, for sure. Now, it is Halloween week. We're within 1 week of Halloween, as I mentioned. So we're gonna get into some spooktacular savings right now. If anybody remembers how they used to market any kind of sale that was going on, it was always spooktacular. So we're gonna have a spooktacular time. Now we just did fresh faves. Now we're each going to do our spooky fresh faves, right? So as always, fresh faves means favorite hero, favorite weapon, favorite equipment, and favorite other card type. But this is going to be spooky version. So we'll go back and forth. I'll choose my spookiest hero, then you choose your spookiest hero, and then we'll go so on and so forth. Does that sound like a plan, Dagan?
Sure, let's do it.
I got to go Leviah, obviously, for my spookiest hero. You know, there are a lot of great options here. You know, a lot of the Rune Blades are pretty spooky. To be honest, in a way, Starvo's felt spooky in certain ways. So I gotta go Leviah. She's very grotesque and very. It's a creature feature of a card, which you know, I love a good creature feature. So I gotta go Leviah. What's yours?
It's definitely hard to argue with that being the best spooky hero for sure. But I'm going to go with Oldhim because he's dead. I love him.
The ghost of Oldhim.
Exactly, yeah. Nobody wants to play against him. He's spooky. Like, he's the old man always looming over. You just have to deal with him. So
I will say, you know, his art looks a little bit like the Ghost of Christmas Present in a way. If anybody's a big Christmas Carol fan, there are certain interpretations of that Charles Dickens play and book where it's just basically Father Christmas is the Ghost of Christmas Present.
He's the grandfather of eternity. Like he's always there.
Always there, always watching, unfortunately. My spookiest weapon is going to be Hellhammer. I was going to go Hexagore, but Hellhammer, I mean, it's a new addition to the fray in the past couple months. I think that card looks spooky. It feels very grotesque. It feels more like a creature in a way than Hexagore. Hexagore actually felt like a weapon, but Hellhammer looks like it was made out of like somebody's flesh a little bit more.
Most weapon in the game.
What was that?
Metal weapon in the game.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I gotta go Hellhammer. You know, here most definitely. What about you?
I'm gonna go with Reaping Blade.
Ooh,
It's a really good spooky weapon. I think in the flavor, if I remember right, it was like made of somebody's spine or something. I think that was Reaping Blade. Like you can't compete with that either. Like nobody gets to gain life. You suffer with me.
Yeah. Reaping Blade. Yeah, there was a couple of good options in the side of the Rune Blade stuff. Reaping Blade is a great option. And then what's the Scythe? The Scythe is also
Scythe. Yeah,
very spooky. Now equipment. This is a tough one because he can obviously go with the shrouds, the darkness, stuff from Dusk Till Dawn. But God, I gotta go with Scowling Flesh Bag here. It is the most gory of the equipment, I think. And if I'm gonna keep going with these creature feature gory slasher kind of vibes, I gotta go with Scowling Flesh Bag. Obviously, I'm sticking in the brute realm here, but I think Scowling Flesh Bag's gotta be the spookiest equipment to me.
That's a good one. I guess I'll go along with that. We'll go with Carrion Husk.
Yeah, I mean,
it's compute with that. It's an entire corpse. Like it's a husk.
Yeah, it's and it looks, and that art was always pretty gripping to me because
it's so cool. Yeah.
It's so cool because like it feels huge, which it obviously is because it's 6 block, but it's also spooky and purpley and dark and really really fun. Now, I gotta say my other card type here. Now, should I stay with Brute? I don't know, but I gotta go with oh man, what the heck? Consuming. It is a Rune Blade card. God, Consuming
Volition.
Consuming Volition. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one.
This is a card that I talked with Anna from Anna Shreve last year on Halloween. How spooky that art is. Basically, where it's the creature's tongue is pretending to be the thing that's kind of luring the hero in. Oh, so good, so good. What about you?
Man, I don't even know how I can compete with that, to be honest. Such a good one. Spooky card. I'm gonna go with Pummel, I guess.
Pummel? Oh my god.
It's the threat. You see your opponent's got 2 resources, it's just looming over you. That doom. It's like, do I die? I guess we find out.
I mean, that is a great. I mean, if there's anything that people are afraid of the most in this game, it's a Pummel, right? You see those 2 resources, you see that 1 resource in the tunic up. You're just like, God, please, just this once, do not be the Pummel, and always is. It always is
every time.
But no, those are some great picks right there, Dagan, and kind of getting me in the spooky mood here. Now, I just wanted to bring up, before we get to, we have a lot of listener questions, but before we get to them, I wanted to bring up the topic of cryptids, right? Your Bigfoots, your Mothmans, your all these different things. And the only reason I want to bring it up with you is because your MetaZoo shenanigans, right? That all happened. We talked about them when you were on the show last time, but obviously you played that game and how it features a lot of cryptids. I don't think in a good way, if I'm being totally honest. Yeah. And I don't want to sit here and totally dunk on a different game, but I don't like that one, and mostly because of my friendship with you, and also just it doesn't look that great, to be honest. But I need to know: have you had a relationship with cryptids in general prior to MetaZoo? Now, I saw you post something about your dad, who had written something. I want you to enlighten us a little bit about that and what he wrote about.
Yeah. So most states in the U.S. have like a cryptid that is kind of attached to the state, I guess. Iowa, where I'm from, has one called the Van Meter Visitor, which is from a small town in Iowa called Van Meter. It's kind of like this giant, like bat pterodactyl looking creature. There's not that much lore behind it, to be honest, but there's this festival every year where people read like short stories and get kind of spooky regarding the Van Meter visitors, like little tours and sightings and stuff. It's cute, I guess. My dad wrote like a short story on the Van Meter visitor, which you can find on Amazon if you're into that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, nothing too crazy. It's just kind of like a small short story talking about like an account of that, I suppose. So
I gotta ask though, since your dad was kind of involved, I guess, in the cryptid scene in a way,
Sure.
right? Wrote a short story. Did that ever make you kind of get into them in a certain way? Because I don't know if you could tell, but I love the lore and the idea of cryptids, right? You know, I'm from New Jersey. Obviously, we had the Jersey Devil. That's our big one, and then the Pennsylvania, which I live right across the bridge from, has, I think, the Squonk or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. That one's a little, you know, the jury's still out on Pennsylvania, but New Jersey does have a pretty legendary one, the Jersey Devil. What are your thoughts on cryptids in general? I remove MetaZoo from the equation, which I think we already have plenty of times.
Yeah. I think it's really cool. It's a good they're such a good outlet for people to write like creepy stories around certain characters that are like fair use or whatever. I think cryptids are super cool. They're all like unique creatures with their own unique I guess, I don't know, attributes, I suppose. But they're a good subject for Halloween season, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And so I got to ask you, I got two questions for you. The first one, what is your favorite cryptid? And if it is the Van Meter visitor, what would be your second favorite? Because obviously, you know, we all kind of like our hometown hero in a way. What is your favorite cryptid?
I think if I remember right, I mean, granted, I learned about a lot of other smaller cryptids from MetaZoo in like that month I was playing the game or whatever. But I vaguely remember one called like the Smiling Man. I forget what state that was from. He was basically like this guy who just kind of showed up in the middle of the night and didn't really do anything. He was just kind of like this guy in a suit, and he had like this giant like yellowish face, and he was just kind of there, you know? He was just a dude. I thought that was just kind of cool, but
I think that's almost scarier.
He wasn't like any crazy creature. He's just like a guy, but he's in like all the cryptid lore and stuff.
Yeah,
I thought that was kind of cool.
Just like hanging out.
He just had a warm face, yeah.
He was there for the vibes. Now, so that's your favorite. Now, there are a lot of great options here for this next question, right? Mm-hmm. Which cryptid would you like to see as a flesh and blood hero? And, you know, I don't want people to, you know, get out here and say, no, flesh and blood's not going to be MetaZoo. That's correct. Because they'll do it right, LSS, right? You know, they know a lot about cryptids in New Zealand. Which would be the best flesh and blood hero as a cryptid?
I feel like the easiest choice would be Bigfoot as a brute.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so easy.
Yeah, Bigfoot as a brute would be huge. I mean, Mothman. So what I think of the big three, or maybe big four, right? Mothman, Bigfoot, Jersey Devil, and Loch Ness Monster.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Nessie, as some people have come to call her. I think they all be good examples, but I do really love Sasquatch as a brute. I mean, it makes the most sense. There was a new video out.
Like,
what was that?
That's awesome. You pummel people as Bigfoot. Like, that's not the like.
That would be really sweet, right? That would be pretty cool. And the armor would be like, it would be one of those things like the effect of the Bigfoot hero would be, it's like brute, Sasquatch, whatever. And the effect text would say, you cannot have armor. You start with like extra life or something, like extra like blocking power, because, you know, Bigfoot doesn't wear clothes. What was that?
It's a big naked hairy guy, yeah.
Yeah, most likely just a dude that was out there messing around with people in the woods. But you know, that's totally fine. No, yeah, I don't know. I'd like to bring up cryptids just because, like, anytime it gets to Halloween, I just want to talk about them and you know, just kind of get people, and you know, you have experience with it, you know, whether it's your dad or MetaZoo. Although, you know, as we stated, MetaZoo bastardized cryptids, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah. But, unless you really like that, then I agree with whoever you are that really like it. Now let's get to some listener questions, Dagan. The first comes from Jeffo. Dear Jeffo out of Pennsylvania. Maybe Jeff knows the squonk. Jeff asks, what's the spookiest thing that has occurred in your life that defies explanation? And he puts the caveat here that events that occurred at the Smash with Green Tree team Airbnb don't count. I knew that because, they were spooky. But do you have a story for this? Because I got a great one.
I really don't, and I wish I did. But yeah, please share yours.
Okay, so everybody turn down, if you're listening at home, turn down your lights right now because this is a spooky story. Years ago, I used to play a game called Magic the Gathering. And that's it. That's the story. No, I used to play a game called Magic the Gathering at a store in Doylestown, Pennsylvania called Cyborg One. Now, that was about a 20 to 30 minute drive for me, not too bad, but in between where I lived and that store was all back roads, right? So one night, and it was a summer night. I remember it clearly. I think it was like June, late June, and it was stormy. Like it was like kind of like had the heat lightning going on, but it hadn't really started pouring yet. But as soon as I started driving, it started pouring. And I'm driving down this very long, very, very long country road, and I will say I'm a little bit ashamed of how I acted in this moment that happened to me. I'm driving. I see maybe 200 yards or 200 meters for our international fans out there away. I saw something starting to cross the road. I'm like, okay, maybe that's a deer. There's a lot of deer in my area. Whatever. I'll start slowing down a little bit, but it looks like it's almost across the road. As I got closer to it, it was a naked man, full-grown man, walking away from a house, butt naked, shivering, and into the dark woods. Now,
what?
Yeah, I swear to God, and I, being the 19-year-old maybe that I was, decided not to stop and see if this person was okay. I was like, I've seen this horror movie a million times. I'm not stopping, and I sped up, and I told myself somebody else would help that person. I feel bad for not stopping, but also it was terrifying to me.
He just was like going into the woods, right? He wasn't like going towards the road.
No, he's going into the woods. Like by the time I already passed him, he was in the woods. It was dark.
Well, yeah. I mean, at that point, there's definitely no reason to stop. He clearly doesn't want you. He wants to go into the woods.
Yeah. Oh, the person was a little bit older. Certainly not like decrepit or anything like that. Certainly maybe in early 60s. So like should have been with it, I think. But part of me is like, oh, maybe this person needed help. But I hope that person did need help. But also, I have to say, and I'm also ashamed of this, from that day forward, whenever I passed that house, it was for sale. For about 8 years. Nobody bought it. So I don't know if that's confirmation that the house was haunted, but and some wild things happened. But that was pretty crazy. I checked the news, nothing crazy. So maybe it was some sort of apparition, but it was the spookiest night of my life, and it's the craziest story that's ever happened to me. And I will also say, at the time, it was summer, so it was hot, and it's always cooler in the basement where I lived. Actually, where I live currently, I'm back in this house. And that night, I decided, you know what? I'm going back up to my bedroom because the basement was just a little too spooky for me. But yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And it was
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So I guess the moral of the story is don't play Magic the Gathering. I guess. I don't know. But no, I'm kidding. If that's what you like, that's what you like. Next question comes from Smithel, who runs a excellent Discord for Commoner, where you can do Commoner leagues called oh man, I'm blanking on the name. Sorry, Smithel, but it's a great. Check him out on Twitter, Smithel Gaming. Growing up, was there a movie, show, or anything else that terrified you so much that it still occasionally messes with you today? Now, he cited his own fear of driving behind a truck with logs based on the Final Destination movie, which is totally valid.
A lot of people have that one.
Yeah. Dagan, is there anything that scares you like that?
This is going to sound really weird, but the original Spider-Man movie, that scene where he first gets bit by the spider and it zooms in on its face or whatever. I remember watching this and I was like, I don't know. I had to have been like 3 or 4 years old, so I don't know how I remember this. But for some reason, that scene like always stuck with me, and I've never liked spiders like in general.
Really?
So yeah, like I don't know what it is about that scene that sticks in my head because it's like nothing crazy, but maybe it's just because when I saw it so young, it just stuck with me. But
it's
yeah, original Spider-Man, I guess. I don't.
that is totally fair. And for those of you who don't know, Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 were all directed by Sam Raimi, who is a horror director, and that's why Willem Dafoe was actually pretty terrifying in Spider-Man 1 as Green Goblin. There were moments like I remember as a kid being scared. Now, I gotta say, Deep Blue Sea is like a movie. Is like a shark movie. Stupid.
Okay.
LL Cool J was in it. I think even Samuel Jackson was in it, and he gets like eaten by a shark, like totally randomly. Spoiler alert, sorry. But there is something about that movie, like, and I love Jaws and stuff like that, but there's something about it where there is a point where people are just like totally disrespecting the fact that there's sharks in this water, and it's really, they're just like hanging off by the side, and things go poorly. So there's something about kind of hanging around dark water because of that movie. I can go in the water, like to the beach during the day, but at night, I don't know. It's just,
water is just inherently scary. You can't see what's under there, and there's so many unknown sea creatures we just don't know about. Like that makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, it's we don't really just like explore it enough, and therefore the unknown is terrifying. Now, the next question is Flesh and Blood related, and it comes from another podcaster in the Flesh and Blood world, who goes by the name of Flake, also known as Matthew DeMarco. He hails from Canada, and his question is, and it's an interesting question. I'm interested to see how you answer this, because I have some thoughts on the question itself, so I want to see where you land on this, because Flake asks you, what do you think is the cause of your performance drops on day twos, right? You do very well on day ones, and you seem to struggle in day twos of major tournaments. So what would you say your answer is to this? Because it's a very interesting question, and of course someone like Flake would ask it. So
yeah, I mean, first of all, it is a good meme. It's kind of funny to joke that I can't finish day twos, but I always do well. But there is a very real reason behind it, and it kind of compounds. There's like a handful of reasons that all stack together, and it's something I actively look towards trying to get better, actually. So, I mean, there's the obvious answers of like just the mental fatigue and not having enough food or water over the course of the day. That's something that's a relatively easy fix. But the two others that are a huge pain for me specifically are the long-term effects I've had from like depression and stuff growing up. I just always have that mental baggage or the weights that like physically hold me back a lot of the time. That can be a big problem. And then there's also the constant headaches I get just by existing. And a lot of the times the event center lights are really terrible. I remember the first time I met Dagan White as an example. I didn't even recognize the person sitting in front of me because I could barely see and I wanted to throw up so badly. And it was the last round of like a day one or something. I just had to finish that game so I could go like throw up or something. It was bad. But at the end of the day, I get mentally exhausted very easily. because there's so much dragging me down, and a lot of the time I'll just hit that mental block sometimes, and I can't think through lines. So that's a major struggle I have to get through, I suppose.
Well, you know what, and these are all valid reasons for people's performance to kind of lag, right? Like obviously the food thing, right? Like that's the toughest.
Right. It's
That's
just an excuse, honestly. But
yeah, but it's tough. Like when you're in the zone and like you're playing cards or decks that block a lot, you're going to time a lot. You don't have a lot of time to do that. But you pull it through and I understand you're saying that you have mental fatigue, long days, but you perform very well in day one. But I wanted to say, when I saw this question, I'm glad Flake asked it. I find that this kind of question, and this is no slight to Flake or anything like that. This is kind of a topic that kind of comes up in competitive card games and gaming in general. I think it's the results oriented thinking conundrum that we all deal with, right? You're just like, oh man, like I couldn't close out, but when you're thinking about it in reality, right? You kill day one, and all of a sudden you're in a field of a bunch of other people that killed day one, and
right.
certainly, you're all deserve to be there in day two, right? And it just gets harder, and the mental fatigue is a real thing, and just because maybe we don't win these events doesn't mean you don't perform well, right? And you've had a lot of great finishes over your career, especially in Flesh and Blood, and almost in MetaZoo until they did what they did. But but it is. I think this suffers from the results oriented thinking problem that a lot of competitive players have, and I think it's important to realize that and kind of step away from it, because just because you're not closing out your whole weekend doesn't mean you didn't have a great weekend, right?
Yeah, of course.
And certainly there's things, and you recognize them, what you can work on, right? And the lighting does suck at these convention centers.
I've had to wear sunglasses sometimes, and I get made fun of, but like, I don't care. I have to not die. So
yeah, well, you know what? The best poker players in the world do it. I mean, maybe for other reasons, but yeah, but like, why can't Flesh and Blood or other trading card game players do the same? So, it's brutal. I look forward to the day when we can have a tournament just outside. Obviously that wouldn't really work well, but it would be pretty neat to at least try it. Or like not green room to get really hot, but like, some skylights or something like that, rather than the
I've seen a lot of the European venues have like very open event areas similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah. And
we just don't really have those over in the US as much.
No, yeah. I mean, that's just the name of the game over here. Like, we're very utilitarian, kind of just like build these big things, and like this is what they have for conventions, and that's it. Obviously some have some nice flair. Like I even think the Baltimore Convention Center is very beautiful the way they kind of built that, but still has that kind of terrible lighting. But these are all things you can work on. But I also think that getting stuck in that like idea of like I am not doing as well at day two is not a good place to be, I think, for your mental health or any player's mental health, anybody listening, right? Because this is ProQuest season, right? A lot of us are going to make top eights. Only one person gets that qualifier.
Right, exactly. It's one of those things you have to learn, especially when you play card games for such a long time, that you just have to focus on the things you can control and then do the best you can in the moment with what you have. At the end of the day, it's just what you have to do. So
absolutely. And I will say, something that I actually remember fondly when we were all in Charlotte. We were staying together at the Airbnb. And to kind of see you cut loose after tournaments, you're just like, I mean, not like Dagan was out here partying like an animal, but he was relaxed. For the listener, he was relaxed. He was having a good time. He was chilling with all the buds, and I felt like that was a positive experience for you. especially in relation to the tournament as a whole. So I just want people to take that home and like kind of realize that, you know what, maybe Dagan has great day ones and maybe it doesn't close them out, but that doesn't mean the weekend was a wash. I think Dagan still does great.
Yep.
So, you know,
we still play at the end of the day to have a good time. So
yeah, but thank you for the question, Flake. You should start your own podcast and ask questions like that. Next question comes from Tommy's Top Picks, and I don't know what this means, but what changes will Hello Kitty bring to the meta?
Good, because I had no idea what this meant either.
I don't know what it means either, but I'm going to say, I'm going to interpret it how I would interpret it. I think Hello Kitty is the new Katsu Crouching Tiger deck that nobody's talking about enough. Or something. Crouching Tigers, are they the truth?
I wish they're not.
Yeah,
they're cool. They're just it ain't it.
Yeah. I think you can add a little spice to the Katsu deck with some Crouching Tiger stuff, but you can't really.
I mean, if your opponent knows how to block it, there's not a whole lot you can really do inside your hands at that point. So
yeah, exactly. This question comes from Sigma, who says, he specifies that it's a question for Dagan because he knows I don't know the answer. What are the best tools for Chain to fight warmongers in the LL format? Or is he just dead to warmongers and we should give up on Chain and LL?
I'm not a huge Chain player, so I'm not the best person to ask. But in terms of the Living Legend format as a whole, I can't imagine it would be many other decks other than like Starvo and Stubby's Fi. So I haven't put much thought into Chain, to be honest, as cool as playing a banned sword is. I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer for you. It's not great for you.
Yeah, Chain's that's an interesting format. Actually, let's talk about Living Legends for a hot second here, because I haven't really talked about it much. We had like one tournament AGE put on. What are your thoughts here? Because obviously it's a format for people who like to do busted stuff, right? Which there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like if that's what you like to do, have at it. What should we expect as just like your everyday flesh and blood players from this format? Do you think they're going to push it in a large way for like competitive formats, at tournaments and stuff like that, or is this something that it's just kind of live like Blitz, right? Sometimes we see Blitz battle hardens, but not often, and it's obviously not even in Worlds anymore.
Yeah, I hope it's not like a super competitive format ever, and if it is, maybe it turns into like the legacy format of Magic with a separate ban list eventually, if that's what they wanted to do. I still have more fun with it than Blitz personally. I'm not a huge fan of Blitz. But other than like goofing around with Data Doll or something, but I don't think it's that open, to be honest. You're gonna do a bunch of cool, flashy things, and it's cool for like an armory format. Everybody just gets to let loose and have a good time. But I am not a huge fan of it being a big competitive format unless there's some other kind of changes.
Yeah, and we will see how there is one tournament in Barcelona. I forget what
It's a battle hardened, I think. Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. I mean, the AGE one was rather small, so the sample size is pretty small. We don't really know what's going to go on at a large scale, and obviously the battle hardened is going to be pretty big. So we'll see. Hopefully it ends up being something a little bit healthier than it seemed. But
I hope so.
Yeah. But yeah. There's a lot to explore there. Next question comes from Capolo, who asks, if you were to bring anything from Alpha Clash to Flesh and Blood, what would it be? And also the other way around.
I guess for those who don't know, Alpha Clash is like this superhero trading card game. The creator of the game is local to me, so I helped play test like the second set for balancing and stuff. I gave him some input and stuff like that. I haven't been as active in the third set because I'm focused on Flesh and Blood at the moment with Worlds coming up and everything. But that's your context for what Alpha Clash is. Some skills I've taken from Flesh and Blood to Alpha Clash. The main contender I like to play is called Clarity, and her passive ability, similar to like a hero ability in Flesh and Blood, I get to opt to at the beginning of every turn, just for free. It's crazy.
Okay.
So, what I like to do with her is kind of pitch deck, similar to how I would with Oldham, because you opt and you don't shuffle that much. I mean, you can like with a couple cards, but you can kind of know the order of cards are coming back up for combos later in the game, stuff like that. So you can kind of pitch deck and Alpha Clash depending on the deck you play as well. And then for Alpha Clash to Flesh and Blood, I got nothing, honestly.
All right. I mean, Fab's a pretty well-rounded game, right?
You kind of have everything, to be honest.
Yeah. You know, maybe, and this is something that they seem to be working on, is maybe adding a little bit more variance for the beginners out there, right? You know, that's the biggest hurdle that folks need to kind of jump over, because, you know, I talk to a lot of people at Armories, and I'm losing every week to the more skilled player. Can be tough. So yeah, variance, but that's something that's in every trading card game, and you can bring it over to Flesh and Blood from there.
Right.
Haven't tried Alpha Clash, but you know, I've seen some cards. They're interesting looking. I'm not big on the superhero vibe, but you know, I'm more of a fantasy guy. But you know, as is apparent by my opinions on Mechanologist in the past couple episodes, but you know, I'm coming around on Bright Lights, at least from a limited perspective. Now, the next question comes from Chuck N. Lee. What do you find so compelling about hyper control super late game decks, regardless of the trading card game you play?
It really does seem to be my MO at this point, no matter what game I play. I mean, the weekend before ProQuests, I was doing a doubleheader in Ohio, one for Lorcana and one for Alpha Clash, and I was playing the big control decks in those games too. So, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to, I feel like I have the most control over the game on my side, where if I lose, it's usually just my fault. I did something wrong. I feel like I have the most agency, whether that's correct or not. That's for debate. I just don't like the aggressive play style, because sometimes it really does just feel like a coin flip, especially in mirror matches. The unfortunate downside being, I might not have time to go to the bathroom, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, maybe we can work on that. Maybe closing out the game a little bit quicker so you can use the restroom. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, it takes a special kind of person, right, to kind of play those control style decks, and certainly you are very skilled at it. You know, I would put you up there with a lot of the best control style deck players in Flesh and Blood and elsewhere. You know, from what I've seen, you are our own little Gabriel Nassif over here for the Magic fans out there. But,
that's a big statement. That means a lot.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Well, you play a little bit quicker than him, I think, too. So, you know.
That is true. I do play a lot faster.
Yeah. So, you know, you got one thing on him. Now, the last question comes from Gary, who's also known as Mr. Viz, also known as Gary, who asks, any fun Armory events lately? Should LSS have a fan-made format section on the site to feature extra creative LGSs like your own?
Lately, we haven't had as many. I mean, we had our most recent battle for that belt tournament. For those who don't know or haven't seen me around with this obnoxious Flesh and Blood belt I wear around sometimes, we have a local event where we have a local guy named Rhodey, absolute legend, who comes up with a format of random rules and stuff, and we don't know ahead of time, and we all just have to play with whatever he gives us. It's a great time. Usually, it's pack battles with special rules. So, like, it's basically shuffle up and play before it was a thing, kind of. Except you shuffle up all the equipment in the deck as well. You only take out the tokens. And when you draw them, they just immediately go into play, and you draw a replacement card. So you always get that feeling of drawing equipment and just slamming it on the table. It's incredible. Honestly, I would highly suggest trying it out. Shuffle up 3 packs. And then the other thing is that you can change heroes. So at the beginning of every turn, you can swap your hero and their token weapon. So you can kind of adapt to whatever hand you draw. So you always have, you know, the best of every playstyle. It's so much fun. I highly recommend that. I think that should be a huge new shuffle up and play kind of format. It'd be great if they were to feature something like that. I think the Battle for the Belt tournament would be a super cool thing to feature on the website, honestly.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I know there's other fan created formats like Clash, or I think it was called Clash, right?
Yeah,
Um,
Clash. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I don't know how much that's taken off or anything, but I mean, some of the most popular formats, even in like Magic, was Commander, and that was a fan made format. So I think it's something I should actively encourage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know what? I think the something LSS can do on their website is feature really cool things happening at armories in
Yes.
general because uh, I've had, unfortunately, my LGS has had a tough time recently to fire armories, and it's a shame, but hopefully we work on it, maybe change the day or something like that.
Mhm.
It's not the format because obviously it was like draft and it was CC. We switch it up, so I think getting people pretty hyped about armories in general is probably the best thing we can do for the game long term
Yeah,
because
something we used to do. So we have like different custom armories as well, where we'd have like a commoner brute night. You can only play brutes. And it's
yeah,
just a great time. Like everyone loves slamming brute attacks into each other.
that's like
Like that gets people super hyped to play like casual games,
yeah.
especially that don't break your wallet. Like it's commoner, everybody can play that.
And we didn't talk a lot about Dallas, but obviously there was a big calling. But in tandem with it, I believe there was also CubeCon for Magic the Gathering. Now, there's some cubes floating out there in Flesh and Blood already. I would highly encourage cubes. If you build one, maybe talk to your LGS about maybe running a cube draft at your LGS. If you typically get like 8 folks at your armory, that would be a really fun thing to do. Kind of like, let's break the mold a little bit. Let's not, let's kind of create an even playing field for everybody. So, so not the pro at the scene is
That's
the most
super fun.
yeah, yeah. It seemed there's a ton you can do, and I would encourage a lot of people to kind of like look at that right when they're talking to their LGSs about the armory because like the armory the game stores that care will ask, hey, what should we be doing different, right? And they've asked myself and some other players at our LGS, and we're trying to figure it out. So those are some good things. So if you're having trouble getting some things going, try to get wild, get a little crazy. Who cares, right? It's a game. Let's have some fun. But
Exactly. Yeah.
um, this has been a fun episode, Dagan. I was really happy that you came on, and you're the best. I just adore you to hell. You're the best, and I'm really happy you came on. We'll make a better habit of it. I think I think you should be a mainstay on this show at this point. Come on, like we
That honestly, that means a lot. I really appreciate it. It's always fun hanging out. I
yeah.
don't really show my face online that often, so
That's all right. Well, last time we had you on, we just had the picture of you in jail on this on the video, but this we actually got your beautiful face. So, if you have anything to plug, I know that you mentioned we didn't mention your Patreon directly, but you did mention a guide that you have on your Patreon. Please plug the Patreon because it is a great resource for a lot of players that are trying to get a little bit more. Get more of a competitive edge, especially if they're into this kind of similar play styles you are. So please plug all of that, and obviously everything will be in the show notes as well as your father's short story. I want to throw that in there too for anybody interested.
yeah, awesome. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Kadachi1, the word one, and then I have pinned my current Bravo guide, which is the exact list I'm playing and my plan into every matchup. It's exactly what I do. There's nothing hidden. It's all there. There was one guy on Twitter that won a ProQuest this weekend using my guide with the exact list, and I thought that was super cool. Oldham, that used to happen a few times, so maybe the content's pretty good. I don't know. You can check it out for yourself.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it for anybody trying to get a little bit of an edge and support our friend here, who's a bud through and through. So you can continue to find me on Twitter at FreshBudsPod. Check out the Buds Discord; it's a great place to hang out. This is all in the link tree below. If you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. If you're on Spotify or whatever, give us a rating, or go check out the YouTube or whatever. Vice versa, all of it helps become a little bit more discoverable. And then also check out my other new podcast that I do with my cousin Maddie. where we talk about indie video games. We love the independent spirit over here. So we're reviewing indie games, and this week we did Wizard with a Gun, which is a new one from Devolver, which was interesting. It was I did not think the review would go the way I thought it would when I first started playing the game. So go check that out. It'll all be in the show notes. And finally, Dagan, I always like to talk about food at the end of the show. What's some food that you want to feature? Maybe something you had over the weekend or recently, or maybe something that you wish you would eat in between rounds when you're starting to get a little hungry.
I pack granola bars, like chocolate chip granola bars, for tournaments and stuff. I don't pack ham sandwiches, but maybe I'll need to consider that in the future, honestly. I did have some really good tacos this weekend in Minnesota. There was a small taco place, and they're always going to be amazing when they have a sign at the front that says, "Please be patient. We don't speak English."
Oh, yeah.
Those are the best kinds. So really good fried tacos, incredible. I forget the name of the place, and I feel bad, but it was around the corner from the Dreamer's Vault, so I'm sure you can find it if you Google it online. But yeah.
Well, next time I'm in Minnesota, which I've never been to, I want to go to. My favorite bands from there. I will check it out. And unfortunately, we don't have time for Charmer yet again, but I'm sure we'll get some time eventually. Thank you all. Please have a wonderful and safe Halloween, and good luck on all of your ProQuests. And as with the rest of you, I am also looking forward to the day where we do not have to face a 3-of-a-kind turn with Rain Razors. So goodbye, thank you, and love you.
Good riddance.